What up, this is my TNA Destination X 2009 pay-per-view review. The opening matchup was the beautiful people Angelina Love and Velvet Scott teaming up with Madison Rayne versus Roxxi, Taylor Wilde, and Daphne, just because I refuse to call her by the name that she's going under in TNA, the governor thing or the fake Sarah Palin thing that they're doing with her, which doesn't make any sense why they're still doing it. That should have been something they would have dropped a long time ago, and just have Daphne be herself, because Daphne's actually a pretty good, she has good charisma, and plus she's very good in the ring as well. And I wouldn't mind seeing, her actually just be herself in TNA, and that would work a whole lot better than this thing that they got going. This was a match that shouldn't have been the opener of the pay-per-view. I thought, maybe the Ultimate X would have been the opener of the pay-per-view, but they kind of saved that for right before the main event, which kind of somewhat made sense due to the fact this is called Destination X, and they were kind of building it around the Ultimate X match in the X division, plus, the Sting and Kurt Angle match, so I guess it kind of made sense not having it as opener, but they should have had at least an exciting match to start off the pay-per-view, and that 6-woman tag wasn't enjoyable at all. It was pretty short. Taylor Wilde, Roxxi, and Daphne pick up the victory after Taylor Wilde hits a German suplex to Madison Rayne in a 1 3/4 star match. Then after this, they have pretty much a unadvertised match they just threw on here, which was Brutus Magnus versus Eric Young. Pretty much a squash match, and Brutus Magnus did a lot of stuff in this match. It was terrible. I mean, he's like TNA's, Vladimir Kozlov in WWE's terrible, but I think, Brutus Magnus is like TNA's version of Vladimir Kozlov, just even worse, if that's even possible. And just a squash match, he beats Eric Young, nothing much to say, 1-star match. Then after this, they do a segment that shouldn't even been done. It made sense in some cases, but they kind of dragged it on, which was Sheik Abdul-Bashir came out here, he got on the mic. His promo was pretty good, I gotta say, but it kind of dragged out a little bit, and then Cornette came out there. The basics of the promo was that Sheik Abdul-Bashir was coming out there saying, why am I not getting the match on the pay-per-view, and pretty much, going on that, he's not getting the just due that he deserves because of his ethnicity. And then Jim Cornette comes out there, doesn't really do much. Then they did something with having someone from the U.S. military come in the ring, just start singing God Bless America. Then Daivari just left, or Sheik Abdul-Bashir, just left, and that was the end of that. Pretty wasteful segment. It made sense him coming out there in some cases, but it should have been something maybe done on Impact at best, and it was definitely a waste of a few minutes on pay-per-view. Then after this, they had the Matt Morgan versus Abyss match of 10,000 Tacks. And I was expecting this to be a little better than what it was. It was a decent match, but it wasn't that long. It was a pretty short match, I would say. They went back and forth a little bit. They did a couple spots in the ring where, Matt Morgan was trying to get Abyss through the thumbtacks. Then the end of this match came when there was a bed of thumbtacks onto tables on the floor above the ring entranceway, and they were up on the ring entrance on the ramp, and going back and forth, and then out of nowhere, Matt Morgan just big booted Abyss off the stage onto the bed of thumbtacks, and that was the end of the match. Matt Morgan picks up the victory, and I would say 1 3/4 star match at best. Really wasn't that much to say about it. Then the next match, not the next match, but the next thing they did on the pay-per-view was the whole date with ODB, the whole segment they've been building up for a little bit on Impact. And this should have been something that shouldn't have had the conclusion on a pay-per-view, because it didn't make any sense having to be on the pay-per-view. This could have been something done just on Impact, and it would have even wasted time on Impact, but it would have been better to waste it on a television show than wasting probably 10 to 15 minutes on the pay-per-view, and this was just a god-awful segment. They tried to make it somewhat funny, but I didn't find it funny. I doubt many people actually thought that it was enjoyable at all. And then the person that won, which has been rumored for a little while, whoever was going to win the date with ODB segment, that they were going to be just an independent wrestler, so that's going to be the way that person's going to be brought into TNA with the whole ODB thing, and it's they're probably going to keep doing this week after week with ODB and him. Then that's probably going to end up him getting, I guess a full job in TNA or something. Then, but a wasteful segment, something that shouldn't have been on pay-per-view. Then the next match was the TNA Knockouts title match with Sojourner Bulk versus Amazing Kong. And this was like probably what many people was expecting, not that good of a women's match. I mean, Amazing Kong's competition within the TNA Knockouts division is pretty weak at this point. They pretty much don't got anyone for her to, go against, or anyone that could at least seem legitimate to defeat Amazing Kong for the Knockouts Championship, since Gail Kim is no longer there. Maybe with Sarah Stock coming there, or someone else get, cheerleader Melissa out of the Raisha Saeed gimmick, then maybe you could have actually someone to take the title from Amazing Kong. But now you just got her in Amazing Kong in a situation where she's going to be pretty much squashing talent and not really doing much. The match ends after Amazing Kong hits the Awesome Bomb to Sojourner Bolt, and I would say at best about 2 stars at best, and that's being pretty generous. Then the next matchup was Scott Steiner versus Samoa Joe. This match wasn't really anything. What it was, they went back and forth brawling for a little bit. Samoa Joe was pretty much beating the living hell out of Scott Steiner. Then the match ends in disqualification, and after the match you see Scott Steiner and Samoa Joe. You pretty much see Samoa Joe just annihilating and beating the hell out of Scott Steiner around ringside. Then they went to the back and then pretty much didn't do anything from there. Samoa Joe did a promo later on in the night with where he had the knife he's been carrying around, and you saw blood on his hand, and you saw blood on his back and his arms. So probably going to build up to a Scott Steiner and Samoa Joe match at TNA Lockdown in April if they don't do the War Games match, which I'm hoping they do War Games at Lockdown, because that would at least be something to look forward to. But since the match ended in disqualification, I'm not going to give that match any rating or whatsoever. Then the next matchup was AJ Styles versus Booker T. This was the first match of the night that actually was a pretty okay to good match. They did some decent stuff in there, and AJ Styles picks up the victory after hitting the Styles Clash to Booker T, so AJ Styles is the new Legends champion, and kind of pointless giving him the title, because I would much rather see him, it would have been worked out a whole lot better if Booker T would have just kept the title by disqualification, and then they would have done something, building AJ Styles to the main event, which I guess that's what they're going to be using this Legends title for, kind of, as their somewhat so-called mid-card title, even though it doesn't mean anything. And I guess it's going to be AJ Styles' somewhat way to get back in the main events, which will be something good, but it's kind of pointless giving him that title. But it was an okay match, I would say, about 2.5 to maybe 2 3/4. So I actually found it at least a somewhat enjoyable match. Then the next matchup was Team 3D versus Beer Money Incorporated, and the way this match went, it was for the TNA World Tag Team titles. It was the off the Wagon Challenge, which if Beer Money Incorporated pinned either member of Team 3D, that member that got pinned would have to leave the company, which I didn't even know that was the rules of it. I didn't know that was the whole name of the Off the Wagon Challenge thing that they've been doing. But the way this match ended, well, firstly, it had a false finish where it looked like it was going to be ended by disqualification when I think James Storm came in there and hit Devon with a chair, and that was the referee then DQ'd it. Then after that, Jim Cornette came out there, restarted the match, pretty much said the match was, I guess, no disqualifications or just restart the match. And then the match ended in then the match ended by a count out for some reason. So you had a match so pretty much you had a match already in by disqualification, and then a count out, which I don't like, those two things happening on a pay-per-view. Then after this, you had the first match of the night that was actually a pretty good match, I would say, which was the Ultimate X match for the X Division Championship, with defending champion Alex Shelley versus Chris Sabin versus Consequences Creed versus Jay Lethal versus Suicide. You saw some good stuff in here. Pretty much, stuff you would expect seeing in here. Good back and forth action from everyone. Saw a good spot with Suicide was on the ring apron. I think he had Consequence Creed on his shoulder, and then he did pretty much a flip dive onto everyone else onto the floor, which that was a pretty good spot. They did the typical Tower of Doom spot. They did that twice in this match, which kind of was repetitive. I think you only need to do that once in a match, not twice. Then the way the match ended, you saw Consequences Creed, Jay Lethal, and Chris Sabin. They were all on the ropes to try to grab the X Division Championship. They were all pretty much hanging. And then you saw, out of nowhere, Suicide dive onto the middle of it and grab the X Division Championship. and he is the new X Division champion, and I'm pretty sure everyone expected that. Unfortunately, the thing I wish was going to happen, which was, Suicide removing the mask and revealing that it's Christopher Daniels under there, didn't happen, but it was a pretty good Ultimate X match. It wasn't a great one, but it was good. I would give it, 3 1/4 stars. Probably the match, I would say, was the match of the night, but that's not really saying much for this pay-per-view. But good overall Ultimate X and pretty enjoyable match. Then the next matchup, which was the main event of the evening, was Kurt Angle versus Sting for the TNA World Heavyweight title with the special enforcer Mick Foley and special referee Jeff Jarrett. And you pretty much were maybe expecting some type of swerve in this match. They actually didn't go the route of doing a swerve in this match or having Jeff Jarrett turn or having which everyone was expecting Mick Foley to maybe finally have his heel turn, which they've been looking like they've been teasing it for so long, or at least the last 2 months in TNA, and they haven't done it yet. So maybe they're just not going to do it. This match was pretty good. You saw some good back and forth stuff with Kurt Angle and Sting. It was probably one of their better matches they've had with each other, because I really haven't enjoyed any matches that Sting and Kurt Angle have had against each other, which is kind of unfortunate because Kurt Angle is a great in-ring performer, and I think Sting is one of those wrestlers at his age that can still go in the ring, but they really never have put on anything great. This was just pretty much a good match, and the ending was kind of wacky in this match. What they did was, you thought Mick Foley might have turned heel, but he didn't. One point in the match, he did get a steel chair, and he accidentally hit Sting, but then, instead of just turning heel or playing it off, they turned heel. They had, after that, Kurt Angle slam him. Then at the end, pretty much Sting just hits the Scorpion Death Drop out of nowhere to Kurt Angle, and Jarrett just counts it for the win. And Sting is still the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Then after the match, you see Kurt Angle and Jarrett pretty much arguing back with each other. So I'm pretty sure you're going to be seeing that at Lockdown. Jarrett and Angle, and I guess maybe they can somewhat play off doing the Sting and Mick Foley match, since it has been rumored they might possibly do that. And with the whole thing where Mick Foley accidentally hit him with a steel chair in this match, I guess they kind of could build it up off of that. But I would say a good main event and a pretty good Ultimate X match. Main event I would give about 3 stars. It was probably one of the better Sting and Angle matches I've seen, because I really haven't enjoyed their other ones they've had in the past. But overall, the first 2 hours of this pay-per-view was pretty painful to watch. The Ultimate X was just good. It wasn't great. The main event was pretty much an average main event like you would see pretty much on any pay-per-view. It wasn't anything great. So overall, I would have to give this pay-per-view about, at best, maybe a 5.25 or maybe a 5.5 out of 10 to be kind of generous to it. But this first 2 hours of this pay-per-view, and I'm not even trying to just bash TNA. I just, think the first 2 hours of this pay-per-view was pretty painful, and that last hour wasn't anything spectacular. If it was something spectacular, it would have probably, saved the pay-per-view, but it wasn't anything that great. So that is my review of TNA Destination X 2009, and yeah, that's it. Peace.